everyone, good to see you again. And I'm spending my morning with Brendan Munro today, which is afternoon for him, CEO of Bannerman Resources, which is a developer of the world-class Etango Uranium project in Namibia. Hello, Brendan, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Elodie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So now we finally, entering the new year. What would have your attention today if you have to look at the next 12 months?
Well, we're in a very exciting phase with Bannerman Resources. We are completing the PFS for our Etango 8 uranium project in Namibia. And it's quite interesting to much of your viewership because many investors and people know Bannerman for the Etango project on the basis that it is a very large open pit uranium project in Namibia. And Etango 8 is a reimagined version of that project where we've scaled it down to make sure that we can get into production sooner with much lower development hurdles. So we completed a DFS back in 2012 and we've been optimizing that and conducting pilot plant work on that and so forth. And just last year in August, we released a scoping study with Etango 8 with a much reduced throughput. So we're busy with the PFS, it's going well, we're excited about it, and it's certainly got my attention at the moment.
Awesome, that's good to see some good news going through out of last year. Obviously, I'm going to ask the question, we can't avoid the topic, the elephant in the room. How did it work? Because you mentioned, obviously, the study was launched last year, but how did it work to be impacted by COVID on the business side and operation side? And what would you say you're doing to mitigate any further risk for 2021?
Well, look, we are very fortunate. First of all, although I'm based here in Perth and our corporate office is in Perth, we've got a well-established team in Namibia with very senior management there, including Werner Evold, who was the mining manager at Rossing Uranium Mine being the closest analogy to what we're looking to build at Etango, and also Mike Leach, who was the managing director at Rossing Uranium Mine when it was owned by Rio Tinto. So those guys and the girls on the ground are really doing a fantastic job. And even though I haven't been able to get to Namibia since Indaba last year, that hasn't mattered at all because they are senior and capable and really got the bit between their teeth. Also, we were fortunate because although this is a PFS, it's a bit of a different exercise to most feasibility exercises because we've done all of the work to a definitive level on a much larger and therefore more complex project. And even some of the metallurgical work that we were doing, for example, operating our heap leach demonstration plant, by luck, we managed to complete that and decommission the plant by February last year. So other than a little bit of inconvenience to do with working from home and a little bit of travel restriction in Namibia, I'm pleased and very grateful to say we've been absolutely unscathed by COVID. And I think it'll stay that way. The remaining work with the PFS is all either desktop or done in conjunction with our consultants. So other than ensuring the health and safety of our workforce, but also doing our bit for the communities, we don't need to take any particularly active steps to mitigate COVID risk, at least the risks that we can foresee right now.
Thanks, Brendan. And I think you're saying something that's really important that came up a couple of times last year is that one of the most important things when you're running a business from Australia is to have a really a good team on site, and that changed everything. And you can go through the storm that we've been through as long as you have the right team on site. So that's really good to see. You gave us a bit of a project update and it's really good. I'd be interested to know about the uranium itself. I know that it's in the media at the moment. You'll be part of a webinar on the 25th of February about the resurgence of uranium. So what are your predictions on it?
Well, we're very optimistic. And uranium has been in a long-term bear market since 2011. And some of the old cliches and adages actually apply in this situation, such as the cure for low prices is low prices. What we've seen as a result of very low prices in the uranium sector is quite a substantial amount of supply being taken offline. Even the largest mine in the world was put onto care and maintenance because its owners, Cameco in Canada, didn't believe it was worth extracting those resources in the current price environment. And a huge deferral of investment into this sector. So global investment into uranium exploration and development has literally fallen off a cliff, even since 2014, let alone since 2012, when this bear market started. Now, you can't have a situation like that that doesn't bite in the end. And what we are seeing is a very deep supply deficit as we speak. The difference between what was mined around the world and what was consumed in nuclear reactors last year was more than 40 million pounds. And that's on a total consumption in reactors of about 175 million pounds. So a substantial deficit, which is continuing this year and which will only get worse because we're not only seeing growth in the demand profile for uranium, but also we're seeing depletion of the large mines that have been carrying the burden of production over the last 10 years. And in fact, between now and 2030, 4 of the 10 largest uranium mines in the world will have to shut down because they'll have run out of ore. And we saw the first of those just this month with the Ranger uranium mine in Australia, one of the real stalwarts of our industry over decades, has now run out of ore. And we'll see the same this quarter with Cominac, which is one of the very large Orano-owned mines in Niger. So the combination of immediate supply deficits, a lack of investment that allows new mines to come online, growth in the sector, and finally a depletion that sees supply diminish very substantially from 2025 to 2030 creates quite a unique macroeconomic setup for uranium. And just to put the current prices in perspective, at the current spot price of about $30 a pound for yellowcake, about half of the world's production is not financially viable. So something has to give. And we believe that that will have to be price, because with 11% of the world's electricity coming from nuclear power and uranium being the only unsubstitutable fuel source for that electricity, there's no possibility of supply causing a shutdown of that extent of electrical production around the world. So prices will have to rise until they can incentivize that new production. And we're very much looking forward to being a part of that.
That's awesome. And how does it work in Namibia then? Because obviously you're working in a territory that is quite interesting. How is the legislation in Namibia for uranium, and does it impact your business positively? Or do you need to be actually some changes to enable more investment and facilitate your operation in the ground?
Well, we are fortunate to be in Namibia, and I've said many times that I wouldn't want to be in any other jurisdiction to develop a uranium mine. Now, for people who don't really understand uranium, it's got a few very different features to, for instance, gold or copper mining. There's a social overlay that can be very, very challenging. There's political overlays that can be really hard to navigate. And then you've got an environmental overlay, which is very justified, but also can be very sensitive depending on the environment that you're in. Now, all of that means that if you're in a jurisdiction where there isn't social acceptance and experience exporting uranium, those factors and challenges become amplified. Now, Namibia has been exporting uranium for more than 45 years, and the nearest town to where our project is, the lovely seaside town of Swakopmund, was half built on the back of uranium. So the level of social acceptance, government acceptance, and community support for uranium is very, very strong. Now, in terms of legislative change, well, look, because of what's going on with COVID in particular in Namibia, it's a very challenging situation to the country's fiscus right now. And we're seeing a real strong movement towards doing what can be done to attract additional foreign direct investment. And there's a high-level panel that the president has appointed in Namibia who are looking at all sorts of different mechanisms by which they can further encourage investment. But over a long period of time, Namibia has been very stable since independence in the early 90s. The mining code in Namibia not only is based on Canadian and Australian principles, so it's very workable, but it's also been very static. So that level of certainty that you get operating in Namibia is already attractive from a foreign direct investment. Now let's see what the government can do to enhance it even further.
Even more. Yeah, I agree. And for those junior out there that may be considering Namibia as a project development nation, what advice would you give them, the do and don'ts, basically?
Well, look, I think the major do is, although it is a very good operating environment with stable political situation, a strong rule of law, it's secure, the people are very friendly, even the beer's good in Namibia. So there is a very long list of attributes in Namibia that make it easy to operate. But the key advice that I would have is you can't take that for granted. You can't operate on remote control from a Vancouver or a West Perth and expect to actually get the most out of those benefits. First of all, it's not actually fair on the local community to think that you can do that. And secondly, like with any jurisdiction, you need to be embedded in the local setup in order to understand the nuances and get the most out of it. And I learned that firsthand. I lived in Namibia with my family for more than 5 years. And not only having a strong team on the ground, as we've talked about, but also having a strong understanding myself. We're very happy being in Namibia, but we don't take it for granted. And also we're careful to maintain a very close finger on the pulse to ensure that the operating environment works the best for us, and the inevitable risks that come with working in a foreign jurisdiction we can manage. Some of the other don'ts, I think at the moment it's a bit hard for exploration in Namibia because we are in a phase right now where the government has imposed a moratorium on granting brand new exploration licenses. I think they've done that for the right reasons. They've given themselves 9 months in which to have a very close look at how the entire exploration grant system works, because there was a little bit too much speculation, which at the end of the day wasn't great for the country and wasn't great for developing its mineral resource endowment. It just means that for a newcomer into the country, you'd probably want to use your time right now getting familiar with Namibia and familiar with the geology. And then the final piece of advice I'd offer is there is a superb geological survey situated in Windhoek in Namibia. And there's been a lot of investment. The entire country's been flown on, for example, 200-meter spacing, aeromagnetic and radiometric aerial geophysics. There's a huge quantity of data that is a very good place to start. And that is not a common occurrence in Africa, I can promise you.
Good, thanks, Brendan. I'm really happy, really good supporter of Namibia, and I'm sure that's going to excite some people that actually are looking forward to explore new territories. So obviously, Brendan, we will see you on the 25th of Feb through our webinar, because we'll be exploring uranium. You touched on it today, and thank you very much for that. So we're really excited to see you with Daniel Major from GovX Uranium next month. And in the meantime, thank you so much for your time today, and keep well in Perth.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you then, and thanks for your time in the meantime. Cheers.
Thank you, Brendan. Cheers.